take the social time and good morning and welcome to the Planning Board regular meeting on Thursday, November 14th, 2019 at 9:30 a.m. Please silence your cell phones if you haven't done it already. Please call the roll.
Member Mendelson? Here. Member DeMoss? Is absent. Member Goldenberg?
Present.
Member Adwar?
Present.
Member Bowden?
Here.
Vice Chairperson Kravitz?
Here.
Chairperson Axelrod?
Here.
Town Attorney Rubin?
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, will you all stand, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Okay, hearing none, I call for a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We'll now get to the swearing in of the public. Anybody who's giving testimony, please, oh wait, this is incorrect. Is there any it's time for public comments. Is there anybody here who would like to make a public comment that is not related to the ensuing business? Okay. Now, let's see, the approval of the minutes. Do we have approval?
There's no minutes.
There's no minutes of the last meeting?
There is, but it'll be on the next one.
Okay, because there's only one concern I have on that minutes, and I'd like to make a motion that under absence, Mr. Adwar, it was actually absent, but it was an excused, I think it should be an excused absence due to the fact that he had severe illness in the family and was required to be out of town. So I leave that, but I think we should change, in the forthcoming minutes, that should be listed as an excused absence.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. Is there any old business? If there being no old business, we're going to proceed to new business. And first, we're going to swear in all those giving testimony for this business. Please stand, raise your right hand to be sworn in.
By the authority vested in me as a notary of the state of Florida, do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, new business. We have an application. It's an application by James and Donna Jandruzek. Hope I pronounced that right. To remove an existing 480 square foot marginal wooden dock, remove top 1 foot of the existing retaining wall, install new sections on the top of the existing 87 linear foot retaining wall, keep existing seawall cap, and install a 273 square foot concrete marginal docking structure at 1087 Bellito Drive. Does anybody on the board have any ex parte communications to disclose?
No.
Okay. At this time, I now open the public hearing. Mary, will you please fill us in?
And this is an application from the Jandruzeks, and I have a diagram up on the it's not behaving itself. But anyway, this is the lot for the Jandruzeks, and the dock is on there. It shows the setbacks on either side. Not behaving itself. And they are proposing to remove an existing 480 square foot marginal wooden dock, remove the top 1 foot of the existing seawall, install a new section on applicant provided a letter to the town from Dynamic Engineering Solutions dated September 11, 2019, certifying that the existing seawall is suitable for the proposed design. The dock will be raised 18 inches above the existing cap and will be self-supported with helical piles landside and concrete piles waterside. The applicant has obtained both the Army Corps and DEP permits, and per section 30-68H of the town's code for dolphins, freestanding pilings, boat lifts, and moorings. In order to be installed, dolphins, freestanding pilings, boat lifts, and moorings shall comply with all the standards listed below, which are the installation shall be subject to approval by the planning board and an advertised public hearing, and the planning board shall have final decision-making authority over the granting of an approval for the dolphins, pilings, boat lifts, and moorings. Appeals of the final decision of the planning board shall be filed in the 15th Circuit Court in Palm Beach County, and appeals shall be filed within 30 calendar days of the decision. Staff has reviewed the application. Here, now this is a diagram up on the screen of the proposed pilings, and where the, right here is where the wall, new part of the wall will be. So staff recommends approval of the plans to remove an existing 480 square foot marginal wooden dock, remove the top 1 foot of the existing 86 linear foot retaining wall, install new section on top of existing 87 linear foot retaining wall, keep the existing seawall cap, and install a 273 square foot concrete marginal docking structure. And following approval by the planning board and prior to initiation of construction, the applicant will be required to obtain a building permit from the Town of Highland Beach Building Department. Building permits will not be issued by the town until all required federal, state, county, or other applicable governmental approvals and permits have been obtained, which right now they do have all of those approvals, except for the towns. The building official and town planner have reviewed the application and submitted documents, and hereby certifies that the plan meets the Town of Highland Beach zoning and other governmental agency requirements. I thank you, and if you have any questions, I'm available.
Does the board have any questions for Mary? The only question I have, in other words, the seawall is in place.
Yes.
Therefore, this does not have to go to the commission.
That's right,
And our approval is, as you said, final.
yes,
And again, they're just capping this and increasing the height of the seawall.
yes.
Okay. Does the applicant care to come forward, and is there anybody here to make any presentation? Feel free.
Basically,
Could you give your name, please?
Taylor Cripps, I'm the contractor.
Okay.
Basically, Mary covered everything. Main reason of doing this is everyone knows the rising tides. But no, Mary explained everything. We're going out 4.5 feet. We have our 25-foot setbacks. It's very straightforward.
Okay.
All right.
That's fine. Does anybody on the board have any questions for the applicant?
I just would like to know if residents, all notifications have been sent, and
Yes, all the notifications have been sent, and we didn't receive any for or against replies.
great, thank you.
Is there anyone from the public here who would like to make comments regarding the subject? So easy. Okay. And is there any other questions on the board, from the board to the staff, the applicant, and/or the public? Hearing none, the public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion from the board to approve this?
So moved.
So moved.
Second. Second, okay. We have a roll call vote?
Vice Chairperson Kravitz.
Yes.
Member Mendelson.
Yes.
Member DeMoss. I'm sorry. Member Goldenberg.
Yes,
Member Adwar. Yes. Member Bowden.
yes,
Chairperson Axelrod.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, we now move on to the second application. It's an application by Vasilios Antoniadis. Right, was that? Okay. Represented by John Dykinga, God, these names, of Ocean One Marine for a 30,000-pound capacity 8-piling boat lift within existing slip number 15, which is part of the Ocean Cove Development Docking Facility. Do any members of the board have any ex parte communications regarding this subject? Okay. At this time, I now open the public hearing. Mary, again, please come to the podium and present.
And this is an application by Mr. Antoniadis, and he's represented by Mr. Dykeen. I'm never sure how to say
Okay.
that, but of Ocean One Marine for a 30,000-pound capacity 8-piling boat lift within existing slip number 15, which is part of the Ocean Cove Development Docking Facility. I put the aerial up there that has the dock on it from that development. It appears one of my pages is missing. I don't know if all of you have page 2, but he does have his Army Corps and DEP permits, and we reviewed it for compliance with the town's code, and it meets the town's code. Notices were sent to residents within 500 feet per the new code that requires the change from 300 feet to 500 feet. And we did receive any responses for or against. Thank you.
I have a
Okay.
question.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. I was just curious, so Ocean Cove, all those, are all those unbuilt with lifts on the right-hand side, or is it just?
That's basically a current photograph, from my understanding.
Right. So
Yeah.
there's none of those people have lifts on that
No.
side? I'm just curious, okay.
Okay, does the applicant want to make a presentation?
John Dekinga, Ocean One Marine. It's pretty much a straightforward 30K lift that's going in slip 15. It's been approved by the homeowners association.
That was one of my questions, thank
Yeah,
you.
no, that's all been signed off. And
Okay,
As Mary said, we've got our core DEP all signed off and ready to proceed based on your approval.
I'm just curious, Goldenberg, size of the boat, what type of boat is it? Okay. But size does matter, I got that whole thing, yeah.
You know, it depends what they allow. So,
Okay.
is there any questions?
Yeah,
Okay.
about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when we were discussing these boat lift issues, we had discussed a maximum height for travel of the lift vertically. And I didn't get the time, it was so that the boats don't disrupt people's views from the adjacent lots, but obviously we don't have that issue here. But what is the maximum travel I see on the chart here for all the different lifts, it talks about 12 feet, but what is the maximum travel that's being installed?
The maximum travel.
Vertical height.
travel, a lot of those, it depends on how high you set the piling, basically, or where the motors are and the winding gear are on the piles, to how far the cradles come up. But you don't want to really get them way up in the air. You want to just make sure you're sufficient to be above the storm tides and stuff like that, and hurricane.
Mary, at this time, is there a requirement in the zoning ordinance that set the height for the, from, I guess, average sea level or mean sea level to the bottom of the boat or something?
There is a section in the code that addresses it, and I can't quote it directly right now, but I believe it's measured from the bottom to the superstructure. And I think that that is something that the planning board should definitely have the staff work on as far as improving that, because there is one proposal now for a 48-foot boat in the, I can't remember the name of the development right now. Oh, Grand Court. And the waterway is slightly, I haven't measured it, but it looks like it's just above the 80 feet, which is the requirement that you have to have for the waterway, to have a dock. And the applicant obtained approval from the planning board, I think it was in 2017 or 18, And they got an approval for 10-inch or 10-foot piles, and they went and they put in 12-foot piles without a permit. So right now, I'm going through that because they've applied to come back to the planning board for a revision to their approval so they can use the 12-foot piles. And I'm just starting to do the history because it's so lengthy and the file is like this big, so it goes back to like 2016.
So I think that the intent at the time of the board when we discussed this, and I remember something about, we had a motion to modify the height, and I believe we talked about something in the range of, from mean sea level, because there was no other way to
Right.
Determine where the water was, to the bottom of the boat cannot exceed something like 3 feet. I don't remember the exact motion that was made, but I think that whatever we decide to do here today should include that limitation as well.
Right, I think, but I'm not positive right now, I think it's 4 feet. But I think you definitely should have the staff research and modify the code and fix it so that it's very clear what all the pilings should be, what's the maximum height you can bring in, because, yes, if you have 12-foot pilings, you can bring in a boat that's pretty high, so, everybody's gonna be looking at boat
Yeah, but
instead of looking
If
out.
I recall, and Commissioner Seidman, Scott Seidman may want to comment on this, that we brought this to the commission with a suggestion, I think several years ago. And I remember that she was an opponent to doing this because of the fact of, I think it was tides. You can explain it better if you want to comment during the public comment part. But that did go through, was never passed. So we did bring it.
That was my question. Is it codified, this
No.
3 feet or 4 feet?
I
So,
think the
okay.
4 feet is codified, but I think that you should have a vote.
So the 4
Tell
feet is
staff.
codified?
I think it is, but I have to look at it first.
Go
But I
ahead.
think that you should do a vote and direction to go research that and improve all of that as far as the height of the boat lift, et cetera.
Okay, that's one of the reasons I keep asking about residents, and do they have any issues with this? The concern also that I have is that the bigger the boat, the more torque you're going to get on the pilings. And with the rising, quote unquote, the rising sea level, if you cap it at 12 feet and you have a bigger boat, you could have some issues that obviously an architect or an engineer is going to have to work on that.
Right.
But the bigger the boat, the more torque you're going to get. And if you keep it low, you're going to get pounding on the bottom of the hull, which will create torque also. It's one of the questions I asked, what size boat are you putting on there?
I think the town definitely needs improvement to that section of the code.
No, that's not my concern. My concern was, how high is the lift going to go versus the torque on the boat and the pile.
You can't talk back.
Right, you have to come up.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, this one's a specific one because it's not in anybody's vision and there's no objection by anybody. But if we do like the Bellito lift, there are residents there, and that's the concern.
The interesting though, the note that we always hear when somebody brings up the question of vision is that's not in the code.
I understand that,
so
but that's why I wanted to
you
know if any residents have any objections,
Oh,
they'd
yeah,
be
I
here.
understood, yeah. John?
When we as board is charged with revisiting this issue, I think this whole visibility issue, it's very hard just to do it with measurements because people don't really care too much if a sailboat goes 50 feet high at the top of their mast, they can still see. So it's a very hard thing to define when you got a houseboat up on a lift versus a sailboat. So somehow or another, there needs to be some thought, and perhaps we could find out what other communities have done to try and define this, so help give us some guidance.
Yeah, I think that if in fact our zoning ordinance lists 4 feet for maximum rise of the, but I don't know where it's measured from. Is it 4 feet above the seawall? Is it 4 feet above the dock, 4 feet above the mean water line? I think that was part of the problem, and it'd be nice to know what that requirement is prior to us approving this.
I don't think that we can, we need to know that, otherwise we can't use that in our deliberations, because we can only use what is
Right,
exactly in the code.
it would just be subject to whatever the code requirements are currently.
Right.
Yeah, so we have,
And I don't see it, I can't find it. I've been
I
looking
mean,
diligently.
David's recollection is it wasn't passed.
Yeah, so
my
I mean,
recollection was it was never
you can't
passed.
impose a requirement
Right.
that hasn't been
Right,
enacted
I agree
yet.
with that.
And I think that is for future discussion.
Oh,
And I
absolutely.
think we
Bring it
can't
back.
hold this man
Right.
hostage
Right.
to some future discussion.
Me
Absolutely.
neither.
I mean, Mary was saying it's something that should be discussed. It'll come through the process and you'll discuss it then.
Okay. Is there anybody from the public who'd like to make comments at this time? Peggy, do you want to speak on the subject? Go ahead.
Does she have to be sworn in?
Oh, yeah, Peggy, you have to be sworn in. You weren't sworn in, were you? Beverly, would you swear in? Councilman?
By the,
Thank you.
you raise your right hand. By the authority vested in me as a notary of the state of Florida, do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Yes, hi, Peggy Gossett-Seidman. I would like to speak as a resident, not as a commissioner, because that is basically a conflict of interest in my opinion. But I will tell you, we looked into this and my family 1 year ago when it came up. And at the time, I also contacted the Army Corps of Engineers, who I'd spoken to regarding an issue prior to my running. And they determined it was very difficult, if not impossible, to determine a mean water line and a boat, and having a code across the board or a law anywhere because of many factors. Whereabouts you exactly live on the water, if it's a lake or the waterway or a river, varies in terms of the tide levels, how close you are to an seaport or Lake Boca or Boynton Inlet in our case. Secondly, the size of the boat. For a sailboat, as was brought up, the hull is very deep and different than a motorboat. And just as a test run, we were thinking of a 3 or 4 foot. The town was thinking of a 3 or 4 foot position for a boat at that time. And so we and my family, we have a 28-foot ski and diving boat on a lift that is 23 years old now. We were the first lift on the Intercoastal in my neighborhood. And we positioned that at the mean water mark, which the Army Corps suggested, and the motor stayed in the water for half the day.
And that is not good.
No, sir. And the point of a lift, and we're in a wake zone where boats, and really do, Mr. Adware has brought this up, they speed by at 40, 50 miles an hour and more, especially on weekdays when no one is there to dress there or have to take the wrath of their wake. Anyway, our boat, I can pass this by, but it sat in the water at the mean water mark, and therefore at high tide the motor was in the water, which will considerably contribute to the boat not doing well and rusting in the motor parts. So the code, if there ever were one, would have to be really configured based on where you live. And also, if you're in a townhouse and you're on the first floor and you don't own a boat, and the second floor or third floor guy puts a boat behind, you're going to have your view obstructed. Being on the first floor, and the second and third floor guys would not, so that has to be, whereas if you're in a home and you elect to have your own boat behind you, you actually then have the your own view obstructed and not a neighbor's. So there's so many factors. It's very, very complicated, and I'm sure Linelda can bring up the slides that were presented a year ago that might help, because you don't want to I will tell you something. When we boat in Delray Beach, it's a no wake zone for the majority of the town, and so north of the Linton Bridge to Atlantic Avenue, and even further slightly north based on the park there, it is a no wake zone, and those boats you know, you have to idle. You can't throw hardly any wake unless you have like an inboard throws a little bit. People park 80 and 90-foot yachts in Delray Beach. They obstruct neighbors on both sides. So when you have a no-wake zone, there is a downside. You can have bigger boats sitting in the water. You get a barnacle busters guy out once a month or to clean the barnacles. And so if you're saying, well, because we have a wake zone, it's a negative thing, it's not always negative. So those people have a whole different view, and in our position, having to require lifts on the intercoastal is not all bad. So if that helps you, but establishing just one number in our instance as our family wouldn't work for most people on the intercoastal. So I hope that
And
helps.
often we in Belita, there is one big yacht, and they have,
Yes, sir.
yeah, and they have a lovely home in the water, and they look out their windows and they see their yacht.
Yes, sir.
Any
So-
questions for Peggy?
I just think that we should possibly table the discussion on how high a lift should be and what the code should be on that for
That
another
could
We
day.
don't have a
Yes, sir.
motion, I don't think we have to table it, because it's
Okay.
really just
Yes.
part of the
The
discussion of
discussion,
the
yeah.
approval, which
Yes.
will not come into
So
play
in
here.
this issue, I believe the clerk can get back to you all the past information
Yeah.
that I provided as a homeowner.
Okay.
And you can see the video of my boat if you wish. Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
I think
Well, we
it'd
could
be
take a
better if we
ride on
did
it
this.
too, Peggy. We could take a
Anytime.
ride on it
Right,
also.
any planning board
Friday
cruise.
afternoon. We asked Marshall last week, but he was busy working.
But you
We
didn't
have-
ask
we have an
me, that was
approval
the-
that waiting,
Are there any other
and the
questions from the
discussions
board
kind of got in the
for
middle of it, and I think we should come back
Yeah.
to the approval, and if the discussion, we'll do it
I
after.
agree.
Yeah, this is, totally. Okay, is there any other questions by the board for anybody? Then the public hearing is now closed. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Okay.
I'll second.
Please call the roll, Beverly.
Member Mendelson?
Yes.
Member Goldenberg?
Yes.
Member Adwar? Member Bowden?
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Kravitz,
Yes.
Chairperson Axelrod?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
C is review and discussion of the crosswalk enhancement project. It says town manager. Rob? You're up. You're up.
Look at that.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning.
So,
Wait, was that like a Hollywood cue?
Yeah, I was trying to look up the question on the boat lifts. It's in the definition of boat lifts where it says the height above a seawall or the superstructure over the piles or something like that. Crosswalks. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
So as you have in your packet, we've been moving forward with our engineers, KCI, on the crosswalk project. Basically, the designs are done. We're about 85% done with the bid documents. A couple things I need to tie down on that and then kind of run it through peer review. And that leaves us to the one thing, where's our FDOT permit? So I have to bring yet another item to the commission next week for approval. Little disappointed in their process of asking for things at the 12th hour continually. But I hope this is our last request where they have to have a resolution authorizing my signature on the permit. So once we have that, we're hoping that FDOT then would be able to issue us the permit. At least that's what they're indicating. We'll wait and see on that. But so basically, we're in the circling pattern waiting for FDOT. Also yesterday, at the Appropriations Subcommittee of Transportation and Tourism, our appropriation request was approved at the subcommittee level, so that moves to the committee level, and we've made a request to partner in some or all of the funding with the state for our crosswalk enhancement project, trying to attract some dollars to that. The reason being is I believe a portion of this project will take us beyond our charter provision of $350,000, and we'll have to make some decision. So hopefully maybe the state will swing through the fences for us and at least be able to help us fund that section. And the section I'm talking about is the embedded lighting, which is shown as a bid alternative on the bid tab sheets that you have here in your packet. So they're going to bid that separately so we can separate the two projects. on that item. So if we'll get the prices, so we'll know what the grand total of the project is, but we'd be able to pull off the bid tab portions, the bid alt portions of it. So we're gonna see, hopefully we can hit the streets soon. I don't wanna go out to bid until I have an FDOT permit in hand. I don't wanna obligate a contractor and then the game continues to change, plan provisions, things of that nature. So we wanna have their permit in hand. So you have the plans before you, again, developed. So basically it shows for 8 of the crosswalks, it'll identify locations where, for signs where they stay, where they be modified. The biggest thing that we're gonna see is the rapid flashing beacon on the bottom of the pedestrian crossing sign. This is a very popular and very successful element to notify those individuals crossing. We're gonna repaint and restripe the crosswalks as required. There will be some pavement milling at the crosswalk areas that FDOT is requiring as you approach it, along with ADA improvements at the landing. So basically, we have to have those to comply with the ADA requirements, or the Department of Justice will get upset with us. So we have those in there. And it's also the same location where a user or pedestrian will stop, rest, and activate the pedestrian activated signal. Those will go, and the person would then, once traffic is safely stopped on both sides, cross. Again, even with these pedestrian activated crossings, pedestrians still must wait. This isn't a stoplight for traffic, so pedestrians will still need to have to heed warning that make sure all the cars are stopped before you jump out there. The other piece that we're excited about too, and hope we can get funding, is the embedded lighting at the crosswalk. So as soon as you activate and the rapid flashing beacon's going, lights in the road will also light up of the same color and flash in sequence with the rapid flashing beacon. This will be especially valuable at night, where basically the entire crossing will, if you will light up upon being activated by the pedestrians. So we have 8 of those crosswalks. And again, the engineer's estimate's around $400,000. I'm hoping somehow we can bring that number down. They always take a very conservative approach. That's why we have it as a bid alt. Let's hit the streets. Let's see what those numbers are, and then we'll take action from there. So we have it at each of the crosswalks. You'll see where signs have to be stayed or relocated. I also have the engineers looking at something on the side, which is something that can be placed at the top of the crossing poles that lights up or stays lit 24/7, not to for any type of safety or crossing, but just so as you drive, you'll know that there's something in the distance. There'll be a little, hopefully, white LED light at the top that just kind of generally lights up the pedestrian activated for nighttime crossings. And as you move down the right of way, you'll see a pole, and you'll just see this little white light at the top, so you know something's there. And it also help keep the drivers focused that something is about to be in their driving path. So we have it designed. We're doing everything that we can in ours. I've reached out to some of our legislators to help with FDOT. I mean, this is starting to become a little bit much for something that's relatively a straightforward project. There isn't a lot to it. We're not reconstructing the road. We're not doing any type of realignments of the crossings. We're just making a quick improvement in the solar. And these signs are solar activated, so there's no power that we do. So this will all be run by the sun. As you can see, these are the embedded light fixtures. I believe the manufacturer there is out of Delray, so it's kind of neat that we're somewhat local as one of our options. With these, I know that there are multiple companies that provide that. FDOT has only approved 2 vendors in their systems within FDOT facilities, so we'll have 2 options that will be proposed on that. So, and some of the neat stuff is we always talk about loss of product. These lights just pop out, so when they do go bad, we can replace them as necessary, and there'll be some maintenance that will be incumbent upon the town to take care of. So that's our update. And as I had said, that when the plans are, right at this point, to bring it back to the planning board for comments, feedback, suggestions. We're again waiting on FDOT. We should be hitting the streets shortly. We're just circling a little bit, if you will, with FDOT. Next Tuesday, we'll take care of the resolution stuff that they initially said we didn't need to do, that now say we have to do. So the dance has become a little more complicated, but hopefully this settles their issues. So
Okay.
that's the update. We're moving forward. I don't want anyone to think this isn't happening. This is happening. Again, just waiting for FDOT. Took a little bit longer than one would hope.
Sean, do you have any questions? I know he's been on doing this constantly.
I probably don't even need to say it, you know what I'm going to say. I, of course, am not a real advocate of in-the-road lighting, and it's quite expensive, maintenance and so on. That would be the first thing that I would hope would come out of the project. The other issue is by putting the flashing light below the sign, we miss an option that, and that's warning the traffic behind the stopping vehicle, because it's not as high as it could be. As higher we can get these lights when they go off, the more we will be able to impact the reduction of rear-end collisions, which has really been, you haven't killed anybody, but we've had lots of rear-end collisions. So whatever we do with this, we need to get those lights somehow or another up in the air. If you have this, the kind that has it all around the sign, gets them up in the air. But if you put the thing underneath the sign like they are in Boca, you've reduced the ability for the cars behind it to see it.
Yeah, I believe they have to be 7 feet, maybe 8 feet. But I think it's the top, the bottom of the beacon. Yeah.
Okay, and if you're looking over top of a pickup truck, you don't see it.
You're not going to see it anyway.
Yeah. Again, that's some of the rationale as to why we were attracted to the embedded lights in the road, because the road's going to light up.
The cars behind are not going to see that either.
But the more light you cast, especially at night, you get the hue of light, and that's what, but again, point well taken, and then you see that I don't think it has a scale on it as to what you're speaking of is the rapid flashing beacons are going to be underneath.
In Boca, they have one. That's
Right on Spanish River by the Publix, if you ever go there, you see that.
That was up on the top instead of the bottom. I don't know whether they can do that, or if they use the one that had the lights all around the edge of the sign, you get it up from that. If you use that type, that raises it up as well.
Yeah, almost underneath
That's like you.
the converter, the sign converter.
Yeah, so I could ask that question for you. I'll respond back to everyone on the height, or if we can add rapid flashing on both bottom and top, could also be an option. There should be enough power in the system to do that.
Yeah, we just don't want it to look like Disney World, per se.
Eileen,
Right.
do you have something coming?
Yeah, I had a question, but I just wanted to comment. I do think that the embedded lighting is a good idea. I think the residents in Highland Beach will, if we don't do that, that's going to be an issue, because all I've ever heard is how dark it is and crossing the street. So I just think even if it takes a little more maintenance, it's something that the people will want to see. My question is, once you get your FDOT approvals and your bids are done, how long is the project itself? When do you see it starting and ending?
Well, it should be done this winter. Again, I'd hope to break ground late fall, so that gives me, I'm really hitting the wall with that until the surprise I got from FDOT earlier in the week. So we'd probably start, by today's timing, it'll probably be after the holidays, because I don't know how many contractors are going to jump in right before a holiday. So we're looking January timeframe to do construction, hopefully, unless FDOT, pulls some more surprises on us. Should take about a month.
And will there be a lot of disruption on A1A?
There will be some, yes. I don't know, I wouldn't classify it as a lot, because there is some, as you look at it on the plans too, you'll see that, we really messed that up. Hold on.
That's okay.
Right, I got it.
I just think everybody needs to be aware of it in advance so that they don't freak out.
Yeah, so the issue that's going to take some time or be the disruption is basically this teal area has to be milled for the crosswalk installation. Now, if we don't do the embedded, maybe you don't need to do as much milling, it'll be less disruption to the road, because most of it's going to be in the road right away off of the travel path or outside the edge of metal, which is the white lines. So basically, that stuff we can do without really any disruption. You'll just see people working on the shoulder, if you will. But when we mill, that's like one day you'd mill it, and then you can drive on it after they're done milling. It's just a little bit of a surface change. They'll pave it out. This is so small, that's a half a day of paving at best, and then paint it. And the paint dries immediately, so, or within minutes, so.
What happens when they do the road work?
There'll be construction signage. They'll have an MOT plan where basically as you approach, it'll say men working in the street or construction ahead. And then when we do milling, we'll have to do probably half at a time, so there'll be a flag person. But it's gonna, I don't even know if it's probably might be a hand mill. I mean, it's so small, it'll literally take an hour to mill that stuff off.
Are we gonna have, excuse me, are we gonna have the square signs like you showed there, as they, with the small little lights that no one sees?
No, there's no. That's that was a test that you experienced up at Boca Highland.
Terrible.
I can't say that I disagree. But yeah, we're not having that. I'm going to try to go back to the standard detail sheet at the beginning of the plans.
Big yellow light?
No. It's going to be, well, it's at the end. Sorry, I keep on flipping through the plans. This is a fun exercise.
It's actually on page S2.
There we go. Oh, no. Well, this kind of gives you somewhat of, I can't find it right now, but the sign doesn't light up. The rapid flashing beacon goes right underneath.
Is it?
It's a rectangle.
Is it on Spanish River?
Yeah, like as you go to Publix, right by the pizza joint, right in their Spanish River entrance, they have it there. They have them all over the place, but that's probably the closest one you might see more often, because I do see some people at the Publix there, so yeah.
When does the state legislature session end? So that we have an idea of when this thing, the end point of when we could possibly have this approval or disapproval.
Yeah, so the session's January through May 1st, and then we'll know if we'll have a really good idea, probably January, February, when it gets to the full committee, to make sure they continue to support not only the crosswalk appropriations that got approved, but also our drainage project appropriations that got approved at the subcommittee. We'll know to the extent if we make it, or if we're cast aside. But right now, we're moving along. It's a promising thing. We could do it as a change order. That's the thing we'll have to take a look at with the pricing. If it looks like we're getting some traction, we may, I hate to admit, drag our feet a little bit to see if we make it in committee. Because if we do come out, I don't know that we want to start the project if potentially we got all the funding.
Is this the House or the Senate right now?
It's in the House.
In the House. The Senate is usually the problematic people.
Well, hopefully everybody seems to be supportive. At least our local delegation seems to be very supportive of it. The county's supporting us. I know that Commissioner Seidman's ready to go and bang on doors.
Working hard at it.
So
working very hard.
We're ready. We're ready to be mobilized to make this go, because this would be great. So we just have to see where that is. So that's the only thing that could delay this project a touch. And I'll keep everybody informed in the community, because I would think everybody would recognize the value of slowing down a bit if we could get state funding to do this. So, and then we can also talk to the contractor too, that if it gets dragged on, if you look at the diagram here, the embedded lights come out of this unit on the bottom. So we could do that at a later date and just do the signs at first if we have to wait much longer, or if we have to come up with a different type of funding scenario or partnership with condos to install these on a secondary basis. It's set up that we can easily add that piece. And it might actually reduce the need for milling the road. If we don't do the embedding, I don't think we have to mill the road.
John?
Instead of delaying the whole project, could perhaps we move forward with the lighting on the side, and then and have the embedding we all know where we stand, but that could get pushed back and then the project could move forward because we do have the funds to be able to do the work.
Correct.
Excluding the embedding, and if the embedding wants to go forward, 'cause I'm not driving, so we could do that after. It
Sure.
wouldn't be connected. We just make sure we got enough power in our
Yep.
solar system to be able to handle the action.
We can. The commission's made the commitment up to the charter limit, so that's really the trigger, and that's really what pushes us off. The other possible scenario in there too is that once we get the bid, if we can only do 4 embedded, maybe we test out 4 and find the 4 busiest, but then I think that becomes an equity issue. Or we take those funds, like I said, and maybe partner with some condos and do something of that nature. But it's all on the table. The appropriations, doing better than I thought. So we're in queue. We have a unanimous support, so hopefully the state will throw something at the project. If they can't do all of it, something, so.
Okay, Eileen?
I would just like to commend Commissioner Gossett-Seidman for all of her work.
Here, here.
Yes.
So,
Michael?
Yeah, I have a couple of items. First, I think this is the best thing we've done in a long time. I think that it's been a long time in coming, and I think that it's phenomenal. From everything that I've read and everything I've looked at, the horizontal flashing lights are more effective than the LEDs on the sign. They're brighter, they're more perhaps influential, people see them better. I think if we have large tractor-trailer trucks, unless you have signage that's also flashing 100 feet down the road, it's not gonna help, but there's only so much you can do. From all the studies I've read, the embedded lights in the pavement at night are a godsend. They warn the drivers, because otherwise you just can't, even if the light's flashing, people sometimes will just not be aware.
Well, yeah, it's almost distracting.
And during the day, it makes the biggest difference in the world. The other thing is that the LED light to illuminate the crosswalks, even if it's low level, is also extremely important. At Spanish River, they do have those lights on the east side that illuminate the crosswalk. And if you're coming home at midnight or 11 o'clock at night, and it's during turtle season and the other lights are off, it does make a difference even though it's low level. So I'm really, really, really ecstatic about the project. And I think that everything possible that could be done has been done, and I just think it's great. And for our dear commissioner, I want to say thank you also. I think it's a great asset, and unfortunately, it should have come sooner, but I guess, as they say, better late than never. And if we save one life or one person from becoming injured over the next 20 or 30 years or whatever, I think it's phenomenal. Thank you. Thank you.
Harry, you have a comment?
Yes. I want to speak about the street light. Florida Power and Light. The light is out nearly a month.
we've sent it in twice. Chief sent it again yesterday. We should be seeing some action quickly. We went through the protocols that are established by
They were
FPNL.
here 8 days ago. I was out there with them. They said something's wrong with the light. People have to, that's the crosswalk, our crosswalk to our beach club.
They're aware. We're making daily communications.
We can't put any pressure on them?
We are. They keep on responding. They're going to take care of it. We called our municipal contacts. They're on it, talking and communicating. FPNL, similar to FDOT's a big animal. It takes a little bit of time. I'm surprised that it's taken this long. Usually they're quick. If there's some other type of...
They say it's not the light bulb, it's something wrong with the
Probably the
light
electrical,
fixture.
the fixture itself, okay. I don't know, I don't have a better answer than we are continually following up as requested by yourself. I know Commissioner David had reached out to us, a couple other residents, so we're following up to say where is the repair for that, so.
Please, thank you.
Yes, I have two issues. One is these are a wonderful project, except that they will not automatically stop vehicles. So I think the big issue, and it's been brought up at a commission meeting, is enforcement. And I think that hand in hand with this project, we need to work with the police department to pressure them to enforce the crosswalk stopping. and with, no warnings at this point, other than the sign that we have, that if someone goes through the crosswalk, they get nailed, and that's the way it has to be. The other is, for the community, there's been a lot of talk about the crosswalks, but they physically cannot see it. My recommendation would be is once we get to the contracting stage, that they build a model, and that we allow the public to come to our building here and see the model, so they physically can see what the crosswalk's going to be like, so that all of a sudden, there's not construction going on and what's going on with the construction. Very similar to the repairs that they did for the Rothberg house when they redid the electric and the sewer coming through. So that then we can make a notification through, quote unquote, our town crier, or we put out a notice that there is a model for everyone to see what the improvements that this community is doing for them.
I think that's an excellent idea, and I think that it ought to be combined with, we need to do a whole education project from pedestrians and drivers as part of that whole project.
Yes, I think, Marshall, there are numerous videos online that show what these devices look like and what the streets look like. My only concern with building a model is that it will increase construction costs, and if we're over budget now or close to being over budget, asking a contractor to come out, do one area, mobilize, demobilize, and then a month later, 2 months later, 3 months later, come back and do the rest of them will have significant cost implications.
Excuse me, Michael?
Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't build a model. I think it's time-consuming and too expensive. What I would try to do is take these beautiful pictures here, blow them up 17, whatever that is, put them on boards and stick them in the lobby of Town Hall. That's how we as a condo did our renovation. People came down, look at the boards, and they get an idea. And that's very cost effective.
My suggestion is very much like Michael will do in a project, is build a small table model and show them what it looks like, not a major construction.
I think this, Leah, we don't, any other comments? Yeah. Oh, anybody have comments? This is basically just an update. We don't have any motions coming from the planning board at this point in time. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. That being said, do we have any?
Public comments. Yeah.
What? Oh, I'm sorry, Fred. You have a comment? I'm sorry about that.
Good morning, everybody.
Fred Rosen.
Fred Rosen, Rainbow Island, Oak Island. On many occasions on a rainy night, I know I have a lot of trouble with these crosswalks, and even with the new lights, it's very tough to see if young children are on the side of the road. But recently I was down in Deerfield around the curve, and it was a rainy, miserable night, and there were some kids at the crosswalk. The minute those embedded lights went off, I mean, it's like blinding, and I think it's the safest thing that you can do in a crosswalk, and I'd like to see that. Thank you.
I definitely think an idea would be is to discuss if it should come down to economics, the various condos that are associated with most of these crosswalks could be approached and asked whether they would ante up X amount of dollars. And we're talking maybe an extra, maybe $100,000 if it came down to it? Yeah. And you have 8 different places. I think that would be a good way to handle this. I think we should definitely be going ahead with the embedded. I'm getting the impression that everybody feels very strongly, and it's, over the years, that the embedded should be a thought, and it just be a way of finding how to finance it. Okay, any other comments? Announcements, Beverly?
Sure. Town Commission regular meeting, November 19th, 2019 at 1:30 p.m. Town Commission regular meeting, December 3rd, 2019 at 1:30 p.m. The Light Up the Holiday and 70th Anniversary event, December the 5th, 2019 at from 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Everyone's encouraged to attend. Also, I will be passing out the Planning Board 2020 calendar meeting dates at the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Just to comment on that, Basically, it's every Thursday, it's every second Thursday. There are no, I looked at this, there are no holidays really that should affect that. And again, this is a tentative schedule based upon on-call from the town or the staff.
And that has not changed since we had discussed this earlier?
No, here, this is the original
I have it.
memorandum, and I actually made up copies for everybody to have that shows stuff like that.
And I know your issue from the previous meeting,
Yeah.
so.
As I said, there was no basic
So our
issue. I
same
looked at
issue.
this, there are no issues basically the next year, basically, thank goodness. Okay, but there being no further business to come before the board, can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting at 10:26?
I make that motion to adjourn the meeting.
And I'll second it for
All
Harry.
in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.
Smooth sailing, Harry.
Believe me, if you put lights in the road, I'm not gonna be upset.
Well, we understand.
Gets across.
Again, Peggy, thank you so much for your effort.
Peggy, it's
Thank you,
great.
Peggy. Yes.
Enjoy your life.
Yeah, you too.
We're voting for you for mayor, even if you're not running.
Yeah.
Nice meeting you.
No. You have me, you're right there.
This cool, yes, sir.
Yeah, well, we know.
Well, I was doing this April 18th, 2000.
Yeah, I'm aware.